Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's IC Realtime webinar. In today's webinar, we will be discussing IC Realtime Smart ICRSS software. Smart ICRSS is a remote client software for both PC and Mac. It can be downloaded under support and software downloads from icrealtime.com. This is generally going to be used by the end users, but it can be used by dealers and installers as well. I haven't muted everyone's microphone, but I will take any questions anyone might have at the end of the webinar. My name is Michael Caballero. I'm one of the National Sales Executives here at IC Realtime, and let's get started. So as I mentioned, we're talking about Smart ICRSS remote client software. So when you download this software for either PC or for Mac, you're going to start off in devices. Now, devices is where you're going to add your recorders or your cameras. Now, if you've got a recorder with cameras connected, you don't need to add the cameras individually. You can simply add the recorder, and you're going to see all of the cameras behind that recorder. Now, there's two methods of locating or adding devices. First is going to be auto search. So that's going to search the local area network for any recorders or cameras. The other option you have is to manually add. Now you have two methods to add here. If you're setting up for any kind of local connection, or if you're setting up for any kind of port forwarded or DDNS connection for remote access, you're going to first name the device. In the IP/domain name entry, you're either going to put the local IP address of the recorder, you're going to put the public IP address of the recorder, or you're going to put the domain name of the recorder that you've created for that public IP address. Then you'll put in the TCP port. So that's either going to be 37777, like for our cameras, or 32789 for our recorders. And then you're going to enter in the username and password of the recorder or IP camera that you're adding. Once you've done that, you'll select Save and Continue, and you'll see your camera appear in the device list. You'll see if everything is correct. You'll see the online status go to green. From there, you have the ability then to go to Live View, and you'll see a list of your devices. You can expand that list to see all of your cameras behind that recorder. If you double click on the recorder itself, it will load all of your cameras. Do keep in mind though, if you have quite a bit of cameras and your PC or your Mac is of the older, or it doesn't have a very strong processor, the software is processor intensive, and you could bog down your PC or your Mac. So I suggest if you're going to install this and you want to have many cameras, generally more than 16 cameras online at any given time, that you really get a robust PC or Mac. And by robust, I mean I'm talking about any of your high-end Intel Macs, especially Core i7 or i9. Same thing for PC. At minimum 16 gigs of RAM, and sometimes you may need a pretty decent video card as well. Nothing crazy, but it does help to have one. But really, it's that processor that you want to have a much better processor, so that way you can handle those multiple cameras as you're basically asking the software to load many high definition video images at one time. Now, if you want to open them individually, you have the ability to do so. You can either double click on a camera to open it up. You can right click on a camera and select whether you want to open mainstream or substream. Or you can drag and drop your camera into the window where you want to see it. So these are the different methods in how you can open up any of your cameras. You can right click anywhere on the interface here, and you can close specific cameras. You can select to close all cameras. You have a few options available as well there. You can start audio. You can start two-way talk from your interface. You can start your manual record from your interface here. You can take a snapshot. You can take a triple snapshot from here as well. You can start instant playback, which will playback your instant record. You can go right to your playback window. You can specify your window scales, your stream types, your image adjustments, or go full screen. Now, when you right click on the recorder, again, it's if you right click and select mainstream, it's going to open up all your cameras in mainstream. You can select substream to open up all of your cameras in substream. You can go right to the device config for this recorder. You can do a 0 channel interface here. You'll also have the ability to activate in your alarm outputs, show any of your and if your IMD or IVS interfaces, refresh or log out of the recorder. Now, when you right click on camera here, you're going to have your mainstream, your substream, your modified channel name, your IVS config, so you see IVS on screen, and your smart search function as well. Now, if you drop down to the bottom here, we'll bring back PTZ and go full screen. You have two options. First is going to be your view, and this is where you can create specific groups to group cameras together. To do so, you can right click here and you can create your group. And once you're in view, that's where your group will reside. Next, you have your PTZ. So this is going to bring up your PTZ control, your virtual 8-way PTZ control. Have the ability there to move your PTZ with that 8-way control. You also have your zoom function. You have your focus function, and then your aperture as well. And then if you hit your more functions here, you can create your presets. You can create tours, pans, scans, patterns, auxiliaries, and your wipers on any of these PTZs. When it's automatically set to preset, you have that ability to then specify the preset you want to return to, and it'll take you right back to that preset. Now here in the bottom right corner, you're going to have some of your split view windows. So your 4 split, your 6 split, and your 9 split, and then you'll have the ability to go full screen or create your custom split views here as well. Now in the top right corner, you have your login information, and you have a gear wheel icon here. And that gear wheel icon, when you select that, that's when you're going to see your system config. Now, system config is going to be configuration settings for all of your devices here. This might be a little small here. Let's see if I can adjust this so it's a little larger for everybody to be able to see. Looks like it's at its scale here. So here are some of your baseline configurations here as well. So you've got your setting for whether you want to open up to new pages when you open up each of your window, a preview page, or resume last page, which we're going to talk about in a second here. Then you have some behavioral settings here for Smart. You have your audio noise reduction level. You have your preview and playback. And again, resume last preview. We're going to talk about that in a second because that's very important. Some device manager configuration settings, some event manager configuration settings, which we'll talk about in the events tab. System settings, configuration settings, time, language, some of your hotkey functions here. And then lastly, some of your local paths. So this is if you want to take a snapshot or instant record. This is where those recordings or snapshots are going to reside on your PC and Mac. And then your backup and restore for any of your configuration settings. So if you want to load this on multiple machines at an install, you can go ahead and export this configuration that you have here for this recorder. And then when you install them on other PCs, you'll just go ahead and install the configuration file for those other PCs as well. So they'll all have the same configuration settings. Now, this is also where you're going to set up resume last preview. And resume last preview is very important because this is what you're going to want to utilize if you're going to set any configuration settings or any specific split views for your end user. So if they always want to look at the same cameras every time they open up Smart ICRSS in the same split view, even if it's a multi-screen setup, you can go ahead and set up for resume last page. You want to make sure you enable resume last preview. You also want to make sure that you enable auto login device. Once you've done that, you'll go ahead and save. And once you've saved that and you have your split view how you want that or enable that, you're then going to create your split view and load all of your cameras. And once you do that, you'll then have the ability to come here to your save view, select that button, and then every time the end user opens up Smart ICRSS remote client software, it's going to log into and load all of the cameras in the split view that you have saved. So it makes it very simple for the end user. They don't have to go through and enable every camera every time they open the software. It'll go ahead, especially if they're opening up the same ones every time they open the software, you can go ahead and the software will do that for them. So next, we're going to go ahead and go to Playback here. Now, Playback, to be quite honest with you, Playback on Smart ICRSS is the best way to export video. The reason for that, and I'll show you in a second, is it allows you to export in much more prolific file types like MP4 or AVI. So we'll go ahead and select a camera in question. Once we've selected our camera, we're going to come down here. We're going to, and by default, all file types are selected or record types. So you can just go to your time and date settings. Remember to keep in mind that your time and date settings has to be the same day. So you'll want to make sure that you have it both for the same day and then whatever time frame you want to search for, or you can just select search. And it's going to load that timeline for how much of the day has already passed. Once you've done that, you can double click anywhere on that file, and it's going to bring up your footage here. Now you can scroll through to see your timeline there. And when you want to export a video, you have a scissors icon here. You're going to click that scissors icon. You're then going to see your start time and your end time. You can move any of these sliders to reduce your end time or your start time. And as you'll see, your start time and your end time will adjust along with that on your bubble here. Now, once you want to export that video clip that you've created, you're simply going to hit that button again, the scissors icon, and it's going to ask you two things on your export setup. It's going to ask you, where would you like to drop that video? So if you wanted, you can go to your desktop, you can go to your downloads folder, or you can create a folder, and that's where you'll drop your video. That's very important. The next item it's going to ask you is, what file type would you like to export as? So if you quickly just need to get this to a police officer, you can export in much more prolific file types like an AVI or an MP4. If you need something that is watermarked and tamper-proof, it'll be original format, which is our .dav format. It's going to, by default, export the Smart Player along with it. The Smart Player is required to play that software. as it's specific to that player. The file type is specific to that player. You're then going to click OK, and your export will begin. Go ahead and put a different camera. Bear with me here. I'm looking for one of my cameras that has motion detection as well. Right. It looks like I don't have any enabled with motion detection for recording here. However, if you are recording in motion detection, as some of you have seen, you have small divots in motion detection, and it's difficult to select those. You do have a file drawer. So if you look at the center right of this screen, you have a button here that it would show, if we had motion detection, it would show all of those motion instances along with your standard record instances. You'd then be able to simply double click on that instance. If you wanted to export that motion instance, you would simply check your box here, go up top, you'll have a save icon, and that's going to bring you to that same export window. Along with that, you have your typical pause, reverse, stop, forward, play. You have your playback speed here. If you had a camera with a microphone, you'd be able to hit your audio. You have your sync icon, and then to the right, you have your split view. So this is what most people are going to be using this for. Some of these features I don't have available, but I'll give you a brief description. Intercom, we have discontinued our intercoms. We are looking at bringing back intercom setup. But this would allow you to interface with any of our IC real-time intercoms. Video wall would allow you to utilize Smart ICRSS with a split view matching a video matrix wall. Event we'll get back to in a second, but this is going to be where your events are going to reside if you set up event notifications. People counting, that works with our advanced AI feature. So people counting, you will be able to get a registry of your entries and exits for a specific time frame, for specific cameras. Heat map is another advanced AI feature, allows you to identify high and low traffic areas and then see that data on Smart ICRSS. Now, log is your log for the software. So this will allow you to monitor whether it's a system log, your alarm log, and your operational log. It'll allow you to see any movement throughout the software, any uses throughout the software, who's logged into the software, who's logged out of the software, and what they have utilized within that software. Now, one of the most important things for my dealers and my installers on here are going to be device config. What device config is going to allow you to do is basically utilize the software as if you were standing right at the recorder with a mouse and monitor. As you can see here, it's going to allow you to monitor the camera tab. Bear with me for 1 second here. It'll allow you to monitor the camera tab. It'll allow you to monitor the network tab. Basically, it mirrors the interface just like if you were standing at the recorder with a mouse and monitor or in the web interface. So it'll allow you to remotely troubleshoot issues, allow you to remotely change any of your settings for your end user, so you won't have to roll a truck out. So it's a great method in which to remotely configure or troubleshoot any of our IC real-time cameras and recorders. Looks like what happened. All right, let me go ahead and close out and open the software. Looks like we're having a bit of an issue there. And again, this is why you don't want to have too many devices running or too many cameras open at one time, unless you've got a very good PC. Unfortunately, I'm working off my laptop and I'm running a Core i5 processor. So you have cameras running in the background and you're running the Smart ICRSS software. Again, you want to make sure you have a pretty good software or pretty good processor. Now, next, we're going to go to Event Config, and this is going to correspond with the Event tab here. And let me go back really quick. Load one of my recorders. So we'll go back to the Event tab here. Now, what you can do here is, for the actual recorder itself, you can activate any of your alarm outputs, or if you specify your cameras, you can receive notifications on the software for video loss, video tampering, your traditional motion detection, and then of course all of your IBS alarms as well. So pretty much anything you want to be notified of from the software. Generally, this is going to be utilized if you have something like somebody who's doing any kind of alarm monitoring, like someone at a guard gate. You can enable audible sounds. You can have an EMAP twinkle from an EMAP that you can create here. You can have it send email. So this is, again, really for anybody who is doing active monitoring or live monitoring from the software. Next, you have tour and task here. And tour and task allows you to create a video tour. This is a great way to utilize cycling channels, especially if you have a lot of cameras and don't have the bandwidth to display all the channels at one time. You can have them go through a tour. You'll specify your split view. You'll specify your task time, and it will cycle through a single split view. It will cycle through a 4 split, 9 split, 16 split view, and allow you to only load those specific cameras that are active in that split view. And then lastly here, we're going to go to user, and these are for your user account control settings. So this is going to allow you to create user account controls right in the software. You'll be able to give that user their own username, their own password, any remarks, whether they're an admin user or not, and then menu rights to be able to access any of the menus from that landing page, and then specify the cameras they're allowed to see, whether it's in live view, playback, backup, PTZ control, or any kind of e-focus functions as well. So now what I'll do is I'll take any questions anyone might have. I do ask that if you have any questions, you go to the top of your Zoom meeting. We have a Q&A tab, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. So this is not the Pro app. The Pro app is our mobile application for iOS and Android. This is a PC and Mac application. It is free of charge. The Pro app is the paid version of that app. The Pro app provides extended feature sets for clients as well as dealers, and accommodates much more settings for things like commercial users as well, who may want more of those feature sets, who may want more use of specialized or specialty cameras, things like multi-lens cameras, cameras with dewarping. That functionality is what's added into the Pro app. If they just want to view their cameras and playback video, then they can utilize our IC View app, which is a free version of the app that gives you all of the features, the simplified features that most end users would need. No problem. All right. Well, it looks like no one else has any questions at this time. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on today's IC Real-Time webinar. My name is Michael Caballero. I'm one of the National Sales Executives here at IC Real-Time. Have a fantastic weekend and stay safe.